Hello everyone, this is General Hand Grenade. Welcome to my war room in Prince George, British Columbia. This is the third video in our series of how to play Global War 1936 to 1945, and we'll be starting a new section today. Today we'll be starting on the units. Like the last one was on units as well, but it's kind of separate because those are facilities, and facilities are common to everybody. And they're not really battle units, right? I guess the coastal artillery would be, but other than that, you know what I mean. Those were facilities. So we're gonna start on units that you would purchase for your military, and I'm gonna do them in short videos rather than doing one long video for all of them. I'm gonna break them up so that in the future you can just go to the video that contains the one that you want to see. So this, like there are, let me see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 classes of units, and we've already done facilities, so we've got 5 more to go. So there's the infantry class, the armor class, the artillery class, the air class, and the naval class, plus the facilities. So today we're going to do infantry class. Now the infantry, and you'll take a look over here. These there's a Chinese infantry here and an American infantry. I love this American infantry guy. This guy here, he's my favorite sculpt that I have as far as infantry go. He's bald. He's got a mohawk there, and just love the detail on him. He's got his hard hat. I wear a hard hat for a living. He's got his helmet in tied to his back there. Anyway, love that guy. I sent one to Sireblood. I can't wait to see how he paints them up because he does such a good job in painting units. And so when we talk about him, we just call him Mohawk Dude. And that's what I call infantry for the most part. I call them dudes. So if you ever hear me saying dudes, that's what I'm talking about, is infantry. Now in Axis and Allies, all you have is the regular infantry. And that's what these guys are. And that's the base unit in a game of Global War as well. And it's just your regular infantry. They don't have any motor transportation or anything. They're just foot soldiers. They cost 3 IPPs, and let me just show you how you can find out about all of these things. So here is the American card, because we're looking at mostly American infantry here. So, you know, like there's the card and everything that you would get when you download the rules. But on the back here, you see here this is where you find all of the units that we're going to be going over. So we're starting here with land units, and then there's infantry. Like you look there, infantry attacks at 2, defends at 4, movement is 1, and cost is 3. And there's no notes on that because, like I said, it's just a base unit. So when you get into other types, then it'll tell you something about it, if there's something unique about that unit. So that's how you would find the information on these, and how you would reference it when you're playing the game. I also have these charts on the wall to help me out, so I don't have to hunt down the cards every time. And it's basically got the same thing: the attack, defense, movement, cost, all that. Anyway, whatever works best for you, but that's how you would find everything. So like I said, the regular infantry, and I'm using custom infantry sculpts. Those cost 3, and they attack at 2 and defend at 4. Now, if you're converting yourself, you used to be an Axis and Allies player, or you still are, like me, and you're moving to this game, then quite often you'll find with the stats on these things, except for the cost, of course, and the movement, but as far as attack and defense, quite often they will be half as much, because we're talking about a 12-sided dice here, whereas Axis and Allies is 6-sided dice. So 2 and 4 is the same as 1 and 2 in Axis and Allies. So that's basically the same, and the cost is 3 and the movement is 1. So a lot of these units will be the same. A lot of the costs will be the same. A lot of the movement will be the same. And it's just a matter of doubling, but not necessarily. Like that they've adjusted some of them to fit this game, right? So anyway, that's the basic unit. Now next to that one is militia, and what I've done is I've glued them onto these chips because it just makes it easier to pick up. And plus I haven't painted the militia for them. So what militia are? They represent various types of local or immobile defense forces. Sorry about that. These are often conscripted and poorly trained units such as garrison armies, colonial armies, and other similar land units. They can be built at a non-factory site. So everybody that you see here has to be built at a factory except for the militia. And these guys here are also militia, but they're unique to the Italians and the Germans. That's why I brought those out to show you these ones as well. So these guys are not mobile. They don't move, right? But these guys here are also militia, and they can only be at in their home country. That's the Italian one. He's called a black shirt. And then the German one, they've got one as well. It's called Volkssturm. And they're just a little bit better than regular militia in that they can actually move one space. So that means that they would get to attack. Now most militia isn't going to attack, obviously. Like the American militia is not going to attack. So its attack value is 0. But if you do have a militia, like there's these two, and also the Russian militia, they don't have a separate sculpt for that. It's just when Russia goes to war with a major power, then all of their militia can move one space. Whereas Germany and Italy, it's only these type of militia that can move one space. You will also have militia that's on the yellow chip like this, right? So so they would attack at one if they get the option of attacking. And obviously the American doesn't. And the defense is 2. So they're not nearly as good as a regular infantry. Like the regular infantry defends at 4. These guys only defend at 2 because they were poorly trained, right? But the advantage to these is that they're only 2 IPPs, whereas these are 3. So you can just throw a whole bunch of these down for defense, right? And they would be your cannon fodder. You're used to using these guys as cannon fodder, and they still will be to a certain extent. But these guys are better cannon fodder, but really only in somewhere close to home, right? Like the bad thing is they're not going to move around for you. So you know their purpose is mostly defense, almost exclusively defense, right? And then, so we move on here, and we went through these the other day, mountain infantry. I showed you the British mountain infantry when we were talking about mountains, when we were doing a video on the map. And so you should be familiar with that one. They're especially equipped and trained for mountain warfare. You add +1 to their defense value in a mountain, and they never suffer the attacker penalty. So I'll just reiterate here. So if you were attacking, let me just show you here. Okay, so if you were here in a regular territory, and these are mountains here, the rough grain is the mountains, and the straight grain here, that's no mountain. So if you're attacking into the mountains, normally your regular infantry would be -1. So instead of attacking at 2, he would attack at 1. But now the mountain infantry, he is also 2 and 4, like this guy, 2 attack and 4 defense, but he does not suffer the penalty because he's trained and equipped to fight in mountains, whereas this guy isn't. He's just a guy that, I gotta climb that mountain? Are you kidding me? He's not happy about it, right? So anyway, and then on defense, if he was defending here and somebody was attacking into the mountain, then you add +1 to his defense. And like I said, they're defending at 4 normally. So in a case like this, he would be defending at 5, and that's pretty darn good on a 12-sided dice. Like that's almost 50-50 chance, right? So these guys are very advantageous when you're fighting in mountains. Like if you're in a wide open space where there's no mountains, like if you're down here in Africa, you look around here, and there is hardly any mountains anywhere. So there's no real need to bring mountain infantry down to Africa. Like there's this one place here, and that's it, where there's mountains in Africa. Other than that, there's no mountains. Well, there's a little bit up here, I guess. But you know, like you don't really need to be building your mountains or your mountain infantry down there. And also, I'll just remind you again that these are what I showed you there. Like this is a mountain territory, and so you would suffer the bonus or the disadvantage on every round of combat. Whereas, like in this case up here, if he was attacking, this is only a mountain border. You see this guy, there's no mountains up here, but there's mountains on the border. So this guy coming across here, he would suffer -1 on the first round of combat. And this guy would get his +1 only on the first round of combat. After that, then the guy made it over the mountains. Now they're going to fight straight up, right? No bonus for either, or no bonus or penalty for either one of them. So that's how your mountain infantry works. Let's just put him back. Now, probably the one that is the most important is the Marines. I mean, as far as specialty infantry, because mountain infantry, that's pretty good. Like what they do, you know, like they do give you a bit of an advantage, right? And they do take away the chance of you getting a penalty. But I tell you what's really important is Marines. So I got two kinds of Marines here. Now this is your regular Marines here. The Americans have two kinds of Marines, and so do the Japanese. That's why I put some Japanese Marines out here. So the Americans, they have the regular Marines, and again, they fight at the same thing, 2 and 4, right? They have a movement of 1, and they cost 4. Oh, I should have mentioned the mountain infantry cost 4. So this is costing 3, 2, and then your specialized guys are all going to cost 4. So your Marine here is going to cost 4, and he attacks at 2 and defends at 4. But I tell you, like they're absolutely essential when you're attacking amphibiously. Like you come in like this, and let's say you're bringing 2 dudes over, right? So you drop these 2 dudes down, and let's say that this guy's defending, right? If this guy gets a hit, you remove 2 infantry, 2 regular infantry, or 2 any kind of infantry that isn't a Marine. Like it could be 2 mountain infantry, it could be 2 airborne if you transported them that way. But that's a loss of 6 IPP or more. Like if you're using this guy in a mountain, that's a loss of 7 IPP just for 1 hit, right? But when you're bringing in a Marine, let's say you brought in 2 Marines. This is also a Marine. We'll get to him in a second. So you bring in 2 Marines. If this guy gets a hit, that's only 1 guy that gets taken off. It's not 2. So you're only losing the 4 IPP instead of the 6 IPP or more. And so that's big time. And also with the amphibious assault rules, and we'll get into that in depth in a later video, only the infantry class units, only these units that you see here get to take part in the first round of an invasion. Like if you brought a bunch of transports here and they had tanks and artillery and all that stuff stays on the boats. The dudes have to go in and they have to take the beach, and then on the second round of combat, then everybody else gets dropped off. And if all of your dudes get wiped out in the first round of combat, and like if you only had 4 of these guys, all they needed is 2 hits to wipe you out, right? And then the amphibious assault is over, and your units, your other units, your tanks, your artillery, all that stuff, have to stay on the boats. Only the dudes get to get off on the first round, and also fighters, aircraft as well. But I'm talking about as far as land units that you transported on your transports. Only the dudes get off. So very, very important to bring Marines when you're assaulting the land, especially if you're assaulting a number of guys, or if they have a bunker or something. Like it's really, really important that you use Marines in order to just even get a beachhead, because you need that many guys. You could have a whole bunch of tanks over here, but if you can't get them on the beach, then they can't fight. So Marines are big time. Now these other Marines here, let me just show you these guys here. This is, I didn't glue these ones down because I bought these chips to go with them. Because America also has elite Marines. And so I bought this set of chips here from Historical Board Game. They got all kinds of American chips. Like I've got Army chips and everything else. Let me just show you. I'll just quickly grab some here. Like I got a couple of these bags of stuff because I was thinking of gluing these guys down to them because their base is so small. So I've got all kinds of these. These are regular Army chips, right? But anyway, they have a lot of different chips for the American, and chips for a lot of them really. But the American's probably the most one. But anyway, I didn't want to glue them down because then you wouldn't be able to see what each one was. Some people are interested in, you know, which Marine unit it was like. And anyway, so this was the regular Marines that I showed you first. Now this guy here, he's an elite Marine. And also the Japanese have elite Marines. And I did glue these guys down because their chip was all the same. It's a Special Navy Landing Force. That's what they're called. They're called Special Navy Landing Force. And the Americans are just simply called Elite Marines. So these guys were 2 and 4, remember. These guys are 3 and 5. So they attack at 3 and they defend at 5. You can only build 2 of those per turn though. Like you can't go and slap down 20 of these guys in the Western U.S. and say, let's go. You know, you can only build 2 per turn. So, you know, the Americans got a long, slow build up to war. You start building these up early, right? You just, you know, buy 1 here, 1 there. And next thing you know, you got 10 of them or more, right? Because these things here really help. And like I said, when you're doing that amphibious assault, it's just your dudes and your planes that are going in on the first wave. So it'd be nice to take some of the defenders out on that first wave, wouldn't it? And rolling a 3 instead of a 2 is a lot easier. Remember, 12-sided dice, so you're still only a 1 in 4 chance even with this guy. Okay, so that is your Marines. And then the last type is this guy over here. And let me just show you what this guy looks like. So this is an airborne. And the Allies have one type of airborne sculpt. Like you can use anything you want and use different color chips. You can do whatever you want. You don't have to spend as much money as I did setting this game up. Like you could just buy gray paint and paint Axis and Allies chips gray for that and white for this and brown for that. You know what I mean? If you have the money, then it's nice to have these chips. But if you don't, you can get into this game just by having Global 40 and this 1936 map. So don't think that it's going to cost you as much money as it did for me to get into this game. But anyway, so the airborne guy that I just showed you there, they represent paratroopers. So they're about flying in and dropping in behind enemy lines. Let me just grab. I should have done this already, but you can do 2 things. First of all, you can use a strategic bomber to, and you might want to do that because strategic bombers aren't nearly as useful in this game as they are in Global 40. So each country has these transport planes as well, right? There we go. There's a transport plane. I should have had him out already. And then there's also the strategic bombers. So you can go on a strategic bombing run with your strategic bomber, or you can use a transport plane, and either one of those can transport one of these things. That's it, just one. And when you do, let's just show you how that works. So your transport plane, let me just look here. It goes 6 bases, and then also 7 if you're at an air base, right? So you don't have to be in the same zone as your airborne, or where is he? There he is. You don't have to be in the same zone as that guy. Like you could be up here, right? He'll go 1, 2, pick up the airborne guy, and then go 3, 4, drop him off in here, and then 5, 6, and land. Like you have to be able to land. Just like in Axis and Allies, there's no kamikazes for any type of your planes except kamikazes, but that's a whole different rule. But I mean, as far as regular planes of any kind go, You can't take off if you don't have a place to land before you took off. And you already had this place. We knew that because that's where your airborne came from, right? So you can pick up the guy anywhere along the way, just like you can with a naval transport. The naval transport could have started here, gone up here, picked up this guy, and then took him over. But you can do that also with the plane. You can go 1, 2, 3, whatever spaces you need. Pick up that guy, take him, drop him off, and then be able to land the plane. So, is that everybody? Did we get everybody? Oh, you know what? There is one more. Let's just grab another thing here. Okay, the UK, the Commonwealth, I should say. So the UK and the FEC have what's called colonial infantry, and actually France does too. Never even thought of that. Let's just grab a French dude as well. And not everybody has these, but these two countries do. You'll find that there's specialty things for each nation. And one of the specialty things for these two nations is that they have colonial infantry. So what happens is, normally, like I said earlier, you had to put your stuff on a factory, right? But these guys here, you can put one of these on anywhere that on a British territory. FEC can put one of them on. Like you can't put a whole bunch on, right? But UK can put one on there. Same thing with France. I'm using this French Foreign Legion chips here, so you can put that guy down anywhere that France owns a territory. You can put him on a factory as well. Like if you had a factory here, let's say this was a British factory, okay, and you're allowed to put 5 things on. So let's say this represents 5 guys, okay? So you put 5 guys on. You can still also put a colonial infantry on there. So you can max out the number of units that you're putting on a factory, plus you can put one of these things on, because he does not need a factory to go on. So you can put him on the factory site, you can put him somewhere else. As long as the British player owns that space, you can put him on, right? There you go, you can put him here. You can put them down here. Anyway, so that's colonial infantry for the British and the French, and they are exactly the same as your regular infantry, except that they cost 1 IPP more. So they cost 4. Regular infantry are 3, militia are 2, and everybody else costs 4 as far as infantry. Oh, wait a minute, except for the elite Marines, sorry. The elite Marines cost 5, but I mean, you would expect that. So your Special Navy Landing Force and the American Elite Marine that I showed you here. These other chips, I just wanted to show you. Like I think I got a set of 7 of them, but I just brought a couple more out to show you. So these things are going to cost 5 as well. Everybody else costs 4. Anyway, that is your infantry class. So, class dismissed.